participation in our Foundational Course Initiative Winter Seminar Series. My name is Matt Kaplan, I direct CRLT, and it is my great pleasure to be able to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Jose Vazquez. He is a clinical professor of economics at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he leads one of the largest economics classes in the country, 3 sections adding up to 925 students. And because that's not enough students, he also does a Coursera MOOC that on the principles of economics, of microeconomics, that enrolls 100,000 students. So he has contact with lots of students studying economics. He's also the director of the Teaching Academy for the School of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and the winner of several teaching awards, including one for outstanding teaching of first-year students. He is a leader in the use and study of technology in higher education, and most recently his research has focused on attention and motivation, and especially the role of curiosity, which is what he'll be talking to us about today. So please help me welcome Michael.
So I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to collect your votes, so you're going to have to participate here. I know that sometimes that's annoying for you, but so if you take your phones and go here, this is where I'm going to collect your votes. And probably when you go there, it's going to ask you for your name. You don't have to give your name. You could be anonymous. In fact, even if you give your name, I won't actually be able to tie your name to your vote, so you can feel confident that I won't be able to know what you voted, right? So, so I'll give you a second to actually go there. Or you can go there with your cell phones or with your computers if you want. And then we're going to do a test question here. And let me write it here so I can actually move. So you're getting here just now. All right, so let me do a test question first. So this is the one I like to do with my students too, actually, test them on this. So I have an accent. I've been here in this country for almost 25 years, but my accent is still there. So what do you think about my accent? Is it okay? Is it hard to understand? Don't pick that one. Is it sexy, like many people tell me? Or is it super sexy? You have another option. In case you really like it, you can actually tell me how you think. So when I click here, not that one, but that one, now you should be able to vote. And this is how you're going to vote in the next questions. And the cool thing is I can see how you voted, and then I can see how many people think my accent is sexy from the beginning. And it gives me a nice kind of an uplift before I start the presentation. Okay, so so here's the actual question. So the actual question will be a demonstration. I know there's some people that have seen this before, so let's try. So there's going to be 2 tracks. Two balls are going to be thrown to the tracks. So just watch the video and then I'm going to ask you a question.
All right, so our track's becoming a little bit more complicated now. It's got 2 humps to go over. It's having to travel a little bit further up and down. Let's see if that's going to be enough to slow the ball down so that the race is going to be equal.
All right, so there's 2 tracks, 2 balls the same size. They're going to go through 2 different tracks. Which ball do you think is going to reach the end first? The one going over the high track, the one going over the dip tracks, or they get there at the same time? All right. So I'm going to activate the vote, so you can vote your answer if you think you got it. So let me do that. So there you go. You can now you should be able to vote, and then I can see how you vote and tell you how you're doing. I had about, let's see, I had about 20 people already voted. I know like 70% of you are wrong. So why don't you talk to the person next to you, and maybe you can improve your vote, convince the person next to you what you think is right, and then vote again. All right, you can change your vote and vote as many times as you like. All right, so let me stop you more time. So this is, the fact that it's hard for me to stop you is a good sign, right? So the most popular choice right now is C, that they get there at the same time, right? That's the most popular choice. That's wrong. That's not the right answer, unfortunately. So I can give you 30 more seconds. If you voted C, try to find a new home because you're wrong. And I can show you the video. Believe me, that's not the right answer. So I can let you talk to the person next to you again. Let me try something else. First of all, would you, and this is a very good problem that you want to have, right? That you cannot get people to pay attention to you because they're talking about the problem that you have given them, right? How many of you would like me to tell you what the answer is? So you cannot care about it, right? Now, to me, that's pretty funny because you don't have no skin in the game other than because I'm not giving you any extra credit or anything for answering, right? But it's just you, right? There's no points, right? So you're just doing it for fun, right? Now, a lot of you are saying, well, this is obviously the physics. Any physics people here? Right? So the physics people always say, you have all these cool demonstrations. I wish I was teaching physics, right? If I was teaching physics, I could be a good professor, right? So, well, let me try to challenge that, right? By the way, have you ever seen this? Ever? Okay, so if you ever seen this or driven one of them, you already know the answer to this question. Oh, you should know the answer to the question already. Let me give you a question about what many people or students think is the most boring topic in all college, which is economics, right? So this is a typical economics question. The most basic concept in economics is opportunity cost. If you've ever taken the class, we hope that you have learned just that, right? Because that is, if you're going to learn one thing, you should know that. And opportunity cost is very simple, right? Is if the cost of you being here is whatever else you're sacrificing that you could have been doing with your time. Right? The opportunity cost of buying a burger is not the money you spend on the burger, but it's the pizza that you cannot buy because you could have used that money for. Right? So the cost of the alternative is opportunity cost. Let me see if you know that by giving you a question. So you want a free ticket to Eric Clapton concert. Now, like I tell my students, Eric Clapton is a musician. Now, Bob Dylan, another musician, is playing on the same night, and he is your favorite, only alternative, right? I'm going to give you some information about Bob Dylan. If you go to see Bob Dylan, it costs you $40, but you are be willing to pay up to $50 to see Bob Dylan's concert. Okay? Now, you have enough information to tell me what is the cost of seeing Eric Clapton. And in order to make the things easier for you, I'm going to give you 4 choices. It's either 0, 10, 40, or 50. Now, all of you, how many people have taken an econ class before? Right, so you just know what opportunity cost is. Now, but even if you don't, I told you what opportunity cost was, so you should be able to answer that question. So let's see how you do. That's the question. You should be able to see it on your poll everywhere right now, and you can vote whatever you think the answer is. And then I can see how you're doing and show you how you guys are doing. So people are afraid of this question because there's no votes yet. And you can kind of vote individually if you want. All right, so as it was the case in the previous question, there's a lot of people that are voting for different choices. I already know that 70% of you voted wrong, right? So why don't I do the same thing and try to convince the person next to you what the answer is, right? To see maybe we can improve the number of people who get the question right. All right, so talk to the person next to you, vote again if you want to, right? You can vote as many times as you want to. So right now, the most popular answer, the one that most people have chosen is 0. That's not right. Right? That's not the right answer. So I can try to give you more time to see what the answer is. But let me stop here for a second, right? So I know you're still thinking about these 2 questions and you want to know what the answer to this question is. But let's kind of go to like we're observing this. Let's put our kind of experimenters or researchers hat, and let's see what's going on here. The first thing I can ask you, how many of you would like me to answer, want me to tell you what the answer to this question is? So I think I made the point that not only physics can do cool questions, econ can also do cool questions, right? But this question, as it turns out, has a pretty rich history. In about, I don't know, I think it was like 15 years ago, a group of economists wanted to know how much students in economics, students taking economics in the US, principals, are learning. So they say, well, how can we test that? Well, let's just design a very basic question on opportunity cost and give it to a random sample of thousands of students who have taken a class on principles of economics in the last year, and see what percentage of those students can answer that question correctly. This is the question they use, all right? So what percentage of those random thousands of students across the US that have taken a class in economics in the last year were able to answer that question correctly? So you did a lot better, right, than them already, I can tell you that. So that was pretty depressing to us, economists. But then they went a step further. They said, well, why don't we give the question to a random sample of thousands of students who have never taken a class in economics ever in their life, and see what percentage of them can answer the question correctly. So what percentage of students who never actually taken economics in their life were able to answer the question correctly? So it's not that you're not learning economics when you take the class, it's when you come out of the class you know less economics than when you actually started to take economics. So then they say, okay, well, what's going on here, right? So then they say, well, why don't we just take the question to the major conference in economics? So the thousands of economists out there, PhDs, famous people, Krugman, Greenspan, everyone goes there. And they gave the question to a random sample of those PhDs. What percentage of them were able to answer the question correctly? They split themselves in the same way you split yourself the first time you saw it. So maybe we can't teach opportunity cost because we cannot agree on what it is, right? We don't know what it is. But this is how you split yourself from this question. Now, the point on this, one could take different approaches to this when you sort of the data. Right? One could say, well, you know, it's really depressing that opportunity that students cannot agree on opportunity cost. But another interpretation of this, that it's actually a very good thing that we cannot get students to agree on opportunity cost when they see a question like this one. You can leverage that in your classroom. So that's a little bit of what I'm going to talk to you about today. So I teach in a very large class. It's actually 925 students per section. Right? So I teach 4 sections of that every semester. I teach, so that's my classroom. It's not really a classroom, it's like a concert hall, right? So this is when they don't come to class sometimes. So I teach that, and then I also teach an online class in my university in the summer and the winter. And then I took that class and put it online for everyone to take. This is a MOOC that's been in Coursera since 2012. Now, when you think about the number of people who have registered for that class, the numbers are pretty staggering, right? 100,000 people have taken the class, or currently taking the class from all countries in the world. But this number is a little misleading, right? Because, you know, my mom took the class the first time it came out and she dropped like the second day or something like that. My brother stayed 1 week. The head of my department stayed 3 weeks and then he dropped it. But a lot of people, it gives you exposure to a lot of people who are actually doing the quizzes, watching the videos, and it allows me to do a lot of research, tinkering down these quizzes and these videos depending on what people are doing with them. So it gives you a lot of data for research, and it also exposes the topic to many people. So I've been thinking about this for a while because I teach a lot of people. So what is my idea in terms of what's happening in education? Now, so I think it's pretty, we all know that teaching the old style doesn't really lead to major learning. So, you know, lecturing from the front of the room, so we know that. So we know, and it's pretty, you know, it's pretty sustained with a lot of research that learning takes place in the student's brain. So you know, this is the whole push for active learning. But I've always thought that this is incomplete, and in fact, it's actually could be counterproductive if we only give this message or we worry about this message. And I think one of the best examples is every time I see any new instructor that wants to do active learning adopting things such as clickers, right? And this is a picture that the iClicker people have in their website. I think you're laughing because have you ever seen someone so happy by clicking? Clicking is not that fun. I've been clicking on this thing since the beginning, and it's not really that much fun. So I don't know what this person is so happy about, especially if he's answering that type of question. This is a definition. This is super boring, right? In fact, I would argue that if you're using clickers that way, you probably are having less motivation because what you're doing is you're putting the students in an exam situation every class. And unless your students really like exams, my students don't, then your clickers are probably going to backfire. And not only that, but now that you adopted this technology, you have to deal with a bunch of different issues. I went to a clicker conference recently, and I saw this this slide. So this is what you get, right? Right? And then I went to a conference, so then you have to deal with that, right? So I went to that conference, and there was a presenter. I think the keynote speaker had this slide. This is a fantastic slide, right? Saying, well, you're getting that. Well, the problem is that you're not really dealing with cheating in the right way. So this is what you should do. Yeah, this is incredible. I mean, look at all this stuff. I mean, who's going to do all this stuff, right? This is terrible. If I have to do all this stuff, I'd rather not adopt clickers in the first place, right? So I think this is clear that it's just getting people to do active learning is not enough, and there's something else that we're kind of missing. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today, right? In essence, the problem is that we cannot simply focus on how people learn. We have pretty good research on that. Well, we need to focus on why students want to learn, and that should be the first question. Because when you focus on that, then you have a whole different result. And let me try to make this point with my daughter. So this is Mara, and you know she looks really angelic there. I was able to take that photo. Usually when I take photos, I'm very kind of like that. Right? So, but I recently had to teach Mara how to ride a bike. So I'm an instructor. I've been teaching for 20 years, and you would think I'm an expert on teaching her how to ride a bike. But if I had taught her how to ride a bike the same way we have been traditionally taught how to teach, or the same way that most people teach, I would have probably put it in front of a computer to watch a PowerPoint presentation of how to ride a bike, and I would say, Mara, watch this presentation, and you have to come back tomorrow and ride a bike, and if you don't ride a bike, you don't get food, right? So that would be a very similar situation to the way we actually, most of us have been teaching, or basically most people teach these days, right? We know that Mara, if she wants to learn how to ride a bike, and I know that, she needs to ride it, right? There's no other way to learn it, right? She's not going to learn it by looking at information. But that's not the whole point, right? Because Mara, to learn it, first of all, she's going to get distracted, and she gets distracted a lot, right? So I need to manage that. But I think the major problem I have with teaching her how to ride a bike is that in order to learn, and that's not Mara, because I don't take pictures of my daughter when she falls out of the bike, that would be mean, right? But if she's going to learn, she needs to fall, and she needs to correct herself and ride again. That's how we all learn. We fail, we correct ourselves, and we do it again. This is the way we learn anything. But the problem is that, why would she get up? Right? This is the challenge. I need to get her to get up, not because she's not going to eat tomorrow, but because she wants to ride a bike, right? So when you think about teaching in that way, then you can think about active learning in the framework of that, and then you can think about how us are saying, right? So it's like, you know, the question that I asked you. So I can ask you the same question about the two balls going on the track, or the opportunity to ask one question. And let's say all of you were motivated, but suppose that you were not motivated. Suppose that none of you were doing it, like what happens with us, with our students all the time. Well, I can try to motivate you by giving you an external reward. I could tell you, well, if you don't answer the question correctly, you don't get paid this month. Right? How many of you will care about the answer? You care a lot, and you will actually do it. In fact, I would definitely, it will result in you doing it. Now, will you like it? Probably not. Are you going to make mistakes? Probably, a lot. But yet, that is what we do with our students all the time, because points for them is like money to us, right? So we put them in that situation. What I wanted to demonstrate to you is that I could try to motivate you by using your internal reward system, which is what I was using, right? You were doing it just for the fun of it, right? Because there was something inside you that was pushing it to do it. And it's strong, because I'm pretty sure you still want me to tell you the answer, right? I know. So as long as I keep you there, it's all about me managing that desire you have that comes from inside you. And I wanted to kind of prove to you that it could be pretty strong. It's like an itch that you have to scratch. In fact, I can make an argument that, telling you the answer right now is very counterproductive. You could actually find them on your own if you don't agree. I mean, I've done this presentation with, a large number of people, and people go to the computers to find the answer right when I'm presenting, right? So I could make the argument that it's such that would be a lot better. So this is what I want to talk to you about. Now, what I use today is one of those internal motivators. It's curiosity. That's the one I've been focusing on. So I will tell you today a lot about curiosity. All I know about curiosity after 3 years of trying to dig the theory and doing some experiments in my classroom to see how curiosity works. But curiosity is not the only thing you can use. We know a little bit about motivation. We have other things that actually contribute. But before I tell you that, since I have a lot of time today to talk to you, I wanted to put this idea of curiosity in the major framework that I am more interested about as an economist. And that framework is really about, what is the machine ever going to replace us? Right? What is our value now that we have a teaching machine? Right? And I can approach that question as an economist. So I want to put the idea of motivation inside that context. Now, I should tell you that I use curiosity because it works, and I show it to you, but if I look at my daughter, and I love to show pictures of my daughter, this is fine. So it's pretty strong, and she's really focused, she's enjoying it. So curiosity is not only strong, but it's also pleasurable, even though some of you hate me because I haven't told you the answer to that question. But nonetheless, I mean, it's pretty. And then we also know from animals, and this is my dog, Dasho, and we also know that they're happy when they're seeking, which is what curiosity is. Right? So it's a way of, I think you can bring your daughter to class, by the way, I think you can combine everything. By the way, I actually made this point because this is important. My students are actually paying attention because they've never seen a baby in the stage before, right? So that something interesting came to the line of vision, and their vision goes there, and I can keep it in there. They have a sensorial curiosity to this, right? But this is going to be very transient. After just seeing my daughter in the stage for about 5 to 10 minutes, then I will lose it, right? So I'm talking today about epistemic curiosity, right, which is our knowledge for information. So I want to frame this in what is happening in education, how I see it going in the future, in particularly how is the teaching machine going to change our jobs. So we need to think about what do we do as instructor. What do I provide to Mara when I teach her how to ride a bike? And I think we can divide that in three categories. First, we provide content. And in that particular job, then we can ask ourselves, how has technology changed the way we provide content in the last, let's say, 10 to 20 years? So when I talk about technology and education, which I've talked a lot, I usually think about my dad, and this is my father, when he was in Vietnam. He passed away in 2014, but I actually think a lot about him when I talk about technology because he was in the business of typewriters. And I don't know if you know this, but this was the last typewriter ever built, and it was built in 2011, came out of the factory. They're not built typewriters anymore. Which is amazing because all of us, this is our ubiquitous thing we saw all the time, our students probably, when they want to see that, they'll have to go to a museum, right? So that is a good thing, right? What happened to the typewriter is what happens when economic touches anything. This is the power of technology. When the typewriter came out in the late 1800s, it was very expensive. You couldn't do much with it. But then people figured out ways of doing things with it that made it more productive. Manufacturing companies eventually had an incentive to figure out ways of building typewriters that are better and cheaper. And this is what technology did. The typewriter evolved to something that's better and cheaper, right? So more people had access to a good that was better in place, right? Now, unfortunately for my dad, he entered the typewriting business in the 1980s, which is when the typewriter peaked, right? And then after that, it went down. Now, that was really hard for us in our house, right? And it made for interesting dinner conversations, right? And then, my dad probably was a really bad business person, but that was really good for everyone else, right? So, because the typewriter evolved to something that is better and cheaper. That happens, if you think about technology effects on goods and services, that happens to everything you can imagine, right? These are just some examples, right? It was really expensive, $5,000 when it came out. It's been replaced as something that is better and cheaper. The TVs, so this is entertainment, right? We replace with something that's better and cheaper. Health, anything you can imagine, right? They have been experienced the technology, have done that. This is the reason why we have more income than our parents did, and we have a lot more income and material things that our grandparents did. This is a classroom in the late 1800s. That's today. Now, you missed a major technological breakthrough in education in the last, I don't know, 30 years. It's the overhead projector. So it's like, so, you know, we can question how much was the impact of that. Maybe in the late 90s, PowerPoint, we can argue that it made things worse instead of better. So education hasn't changed. You know, there was no major technological breakthrough in education for almost 200 years. Right? It did not experience any of the technological innovation that any of the other groups experienced. But my argument is that in the last 20 years it has, and there have been two major changes that will change dramatically the way we teach. Right? And by the way, we had that classroom and technology even after the invention of a textbook. Right? So. So the first is how we deliver content. So traditionally, the way we deliver content is two ways: with the lecture in class and with the students reading the textbook. And the way we have done it is we tell students to read the textbook for coming to class. Right? Now, why is it that textbooks didn't get rid of the lecture? And I think the point I'm going to make should be pretty clear. So when we ask students to read the textbook, they go to their class, and we think that they sit down, you know, with a cup of coffee and they read this engaging thing. With a lot of pages, right, before coming to class, with equations in between, and you know, boxes inside for information, and then you have a graph every so often that you have to look at the previous page in order to make sense of what it's saying, right? And then you have another graph with a table on top that you actually now have to look at the table, at the graph, at the text below, at the text before too, right? And then you have an economy. You have graph like this one. This is the most popular textbook in economics, right? They promote the textbook saying this textbook is easy to learn, right? Look at this graph. There's no way this textbook with this graph could be easy, right? This, I don't even know what this graph is saying. And I'm going to have a PhD in economics, right? So the point is that reading this stuff is very, very hard, right? This is not easy to do. And the reason students don't do it is because they're human. Right? And humans don't like to consume information in this way, particularly if you don't know anything about what you're actually reading. Right? So I ask my students, do you read the textbook before class? And this is what they tell me. Thousands of students. I know, maybe yours are different, but most don't read the textbook. Now, you're saying, well, but if I ask questions, they will read it. No, they won't, right? Because I collected this data, and I have questions that they had to answer, reading comprehension, before coming to class. They were doing great on those questions. They were just not using the textbook to actually answer them. Right? And I asked them, I did focus group, but what are you doing? Well, you know, I'm guessing the first 2 or 3 times, and then after that I asked my friend. If my friend didn't, I asked my, you know, people. No, in none of their work, I go to Google and search Google, there's Wikipedia. The last possible thing they do is use the textbook to answer those questions, right? So they don't do it, and the reason, we can say, well, students are bad and they shouldn't read, and so. But the other way of looking at it is to give them the benefit of the doubt and saying that, you know, reading is not a good way of consuming information for novices. And the reason for that has to do with the way the brain works. Right? The brain has been around for many years, and it's been around for many years and has done well because it's very good at doing the best with the least amount of information. Right? Let me try to prove that to you. There's only one image here that represents an accurate image of a penny. Lincoln is looking in the right place, you know, the words are in the right place. Which one is it? When you have it, just go. Yes?
B?
No? Which one? No, you cannot look at a penny. You have right? So, which one is it? No, it's not C. Is it too hard? Should I make it easier? Is it easier now? No. So the question is, how is it possible that you cannot identify a photo of a penny? How many times have you seen a penny in your life? Right? Shame on you, right? Now, there's a very specific reason why you can recognize it. Why is that? Huh? It is there, actually. That's a good guess. I know that. I do that with my students all the time. It is there. But, so why can't you recognize it?
There's too many options.
No, one is that there are too many options, right? But if I had given you 2 options, you would have missed it probably more than 50% of the time, right? So it's part of it. There's also going on. Yeah.
Because you're not working in general.
Exactly, right.
Details.
Right, you don't need the details. You don't need the details for the penny to work, and your brain knows that. So he will not concentrate, the brain is not going to concentrate on the. I mean, if you think about it, you know, imagine many years ago, we were running in the savannah, like hunting stuff, and there was a lion coming to get us. Did we stop to check which color the eyes the lion had, or which color the eyes, or how big the lion? No, we knew that it was a lion, and we have to run for our life. That's the way we survive, right? So the brain is really, really bad at getting details. If you want the brain to assimilate details, the brain is going to need time. So if you want your students to consume content, a lot of content, in a very quick way, reading is a very bad way of doing it, right? And it's not like they're going to read the whole text, and they're going to, and that's okay, because if they read it, they remember at least 10% of it when they come to class. That is just not how the brain works. So the brain is not like a bucket that you put water on it, and then you put too much water, some of the water comes out, and then but some stay. The brain is more like that if you put too much water, it just breaks at the seams and everything is out. So it is very likely, you do a test of this, that the students reading the textbook before class are less prepared than the students who actually have not read the textbook at all, right? Now, how do we transfer information to students then? Well, the best way to transfer information to students is by trying to use the most, sensorial systems they have. A very quick way is to use at least two. When you're reading, you're using just one, your eyes. But when I'm talking to you and drawing on the board, I'm using two, your eyes and your ears, and you're syncing them together at the same time. This is the reason why the textbook didn't get rid of the lecture, because a lecture is a lot more efficient at transferring information than it is just text alone. This is the way humans actually like to consume information, and the students happen to be human, right? We needed a classroom because the lecture was important. It's not because it wasn't, right? We needed that classroom because up to 20 or 30 years ago, it was very expensive to provide that content in a lecture in other way other than the classroom. And this classroom was organized for one person to deliver the multimedia to a lot of people, right? Now, the problem is now that the technology is such, and this is in the last 10 or 15 years, this wasn't even here in the early 2000s, is that now I can provide the same thing to my students, and it takes me about the iPad cost me what? $500, one-time payment, and then I can take 2 minutes to record it, and I can take another 2 minutes to put it online for them, right? And I can do this.
Also requires a fourth worker.
Provide the same content I was providing them with a
It
textbook.
really increase the efficiency of the watching process.
But now they're seeing and hearing at the same time.
The output, the overall number of cars watch with.
So this is a lot more effective to consume, right?
The facility becomes a little crowded, and therefore the increase in the number of cars watched is not as high as with the previous worker. In other words, at some level of input, marginal product begins to fall. In this case, do 3 additional.
So this is me with the iPad doing the same thing I used to do in the board. I can try to make it flashy and hire people to do it, but there's no gains really from the flashiness. You're just simply trying, but this is, again, it's very cheap to do now. Very cheap to do. So what we have here is a situation in which the question we should be asking is that we don't want to get rid of the lecture because we need to provide content, but do it in the classroom is too expensive. Because the opportunity cost of it are too high, because we can provide very close to it online. Because the technology is such that the cost of compression has gone down dramatically, and the cost of megabytes have gone down dramatically in the last 15 years, right? It's in the early 2000s, that wasn't there yet, right? That we can now do this. So again, the machine is not as good as us, but it's almost as good as us for a very, very, very low price. So we cannot compete with the machine anymore, I think. You need the lecture, but the machine should provide it outside of the classroom, right? And it can be something that you record, but again, this is not something that, but this is a good thing, because think about my daughter, right, Mara. I'm not an expert on writing bikes. Content is not what I have my value for her. So I'm actually good that I don't have to provide content for her. That's not where my value is, because I think that's not where my strength is. Okay. So so the second thing we provide is to design the instruction. We need the content, but we need to put it in some way that people consume it. Again, Mara likes to ride a bike, but she's gonna get distracted, So I need to organize my instruction in a way that prevents them from getting distracted so much, or kind of capitalize on that. So again, she's going to have to fall, and I want her to fall and get up, right? Now, in terms of design, again, I don't have any special knowledge about how to ride bikes. I know that she's going to have to ride a helmet because I don't want her to die, right? Because if she dies, she won't learn to ride a bike, right? But I don't have any special knowledge of what she should use a helmet. I mean, you know, I don't have any special value there, right? But as it turns out, I mean, we've always been instructors, and the way we have designed our content for many years was we lecture in class, and then we ask students to come back to the classroom to take an exam, right? So that was the technology we had. Now, the last 20 years, or maybe 25 years, the machine has done a lot to improve on that. And why do we want to improve on that? The reason we want the machine to improve on that is because we were forced to fix time. And when we are forced to fix time, we have no choice but to let performance change. And that's what drives the bell curve. Right? We needed the students to come to classroom to get the content, and we needed to come to classroom again to be assessed. We have no choice but to have everyone progress at the same time, because we needed them in the classroom at those 2 times. Now that's a very, very ineffective way of teaching. And if you look at Bloom, he actually recognized that more than 50 years ago, and he actually told us what is the best way of teaching. And he said the ideal way of teaching is when everyone should get education, the teaching they need, right? Everyone needs different teaching, right? So he realized that the bell curve was there as evidence of our failure to actually do this, right? So he said that the best teaching is teaching that actually does that. Unfortunately, he didn't have the technology to do that for students to progress at their own time. But now we do, and it's very, very cheap, right? So my students in my class, they actually watch a video lecture, they get a question. They answer that question correctly, they get the next lecture. But if they answer that question incorrectly, they get another video, different. And then they get another question. If they answer the question correctly, then they get to that question, right? And if they answer that question correctly, they end the lesson, but if they not, they go to a different point, right? This is expensive to set up. It has a high fixed cost. But then to provide it, I can provide it for many years, right? So, it's very cost effective in that way, right? So some students will progress in this way, and some students will progress in that way. And all I require them is to complete it by, let's say, maybe in mid-semester or by the end of the semester, right? So what happens, I'm able to do this, there's some humans that I need to be, but I'm able to do that because there's technology that is cheap enough for me to do that, right? And so what is the effect of this? Well, the effect of this is that now I don't have to fix time, which I had to before. Now what I need to fix, I don't have to fix, right? I don't have to fix time. I can let the time to completion change. And some people change it. I can put the bar here, and they're going to finish it in different times. There's no bell curve anymore, at least on performance. There is a bell curve on time, but everyone finishes. This is what Bloom said that we should be doing, right? We should put the bar here, and we should get everyone to finish. Right? Now, we can do that, and it's very, very cheap. So again, when you go back to here, and this could be bought out of the package. Many publishers are providing this. But you can actually take some time and do it, right? This is a little bit of what we do institutionally by helping instructors do this, right? This is what FCI does, right? So you are helping. You can take time to design this, but after it's designed in the right way, you can actually provide it at scale, right? So I think, and it's provided mostly, a lot of it, by the machine. So I believe we can compete with the machine on this. The machine is just too good, right? After we program it in this one, right? But that's a good thing, because again, the design on it, we can do research to improve it, but it's the design, no single person has a special knowledge about design of instructors, design. Right? We know how to design because there's research to support how instructional design should be done, and we are kind of spreading that research and that knowledge across. Right? But no single person has a perfect knowledge of that. So I think that it's a good thing that the machine can do this for us. But the last thing the machine doesn't do so well, or we can question that, is the last one. And again, this is the same idea, right? So this is a good thing because those two technologies are going to reduce the cost of education for a lot of people. And again, this might not be good for those instructors who can suffer, but this is actually good for society. Again, my dad suffered, but society was bad. But again, the key here is to get Mara to get up. There is where I provide her special thing. If she had to pay someone to do that part, the motivational part, I will be able to charge her the most money. Why? To Mara, I'm the best. Maybe her mom too. But me and her mom. Why? No one can get her to get up.
Because she trusts you.
Because she trusts me. What else?
Because you know her.
Because I know her. Right? Those things are important to motivate her from within. Because I love her. Right? All of those, that is what makes me special for Mara. So it's a good thing that actually I don't have to focus on content on design, and I can focus on the things that I'm good at. So it should be a good thing. We should all be, at least the people who are here, we should be glad that that shift, the technology is forcing, the economics are forcing us to focus on motivation rather than the other two things, because that's where our value is. And you know what? It's really, really hard to motivate people. And every time you do something that's hard, you get rewarded for it in the market. Right? So the point is, like, it is actually, we should be welcoming the teaching machine, because at least it's actually forcing us to do what we are really good at. Because we study economics, I know economics, I love economics. So if I love economics, I should be focusing on making everyone else love economics, right? I don't want to focus on them learning the supply and demand and the graph and here. No. I want to tell them why I think economics is the best thing in the world, right? And if I can spend time on that, that's what my value is. So my point is that motivation, I think, should be what we should be focusing the next 10 years. And one of those things is curiosity. So what I'm going to do today is I prove to you that motivation can be powerful. I'm going to show you in the rest of the time I have here some of the things I did in order to motivate you, because it wasn't it wasn't just by random thing that you were motivated by it. And then hopefully I'm going to try to. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to tell you three things, a few things theoretically that we know about curiosity, and then I'm going to tell you what that means in terms of applying. Hopefully you get out of the classroom today with 2 or 3 things that you can do right away in your classroom to increase curiosity of your students. Okay, so think about curiosity first. So what is curiosity? That's the first question. So curiosity has been studied by cognitive scientists for a long time. There's many definitions. The most practical definition, and the best one we can use, is this one. And it was surprisingly suggested by an economist in the mid-1990s. The reason this definition is good is there's 2 reasons. One is very simple, and you can operationalize it pretty quickly. And second of it's actually very powerful in what it says, right? So we said that we are curious when there's some gap between what we know and what we don't know, and the best this gap is, the more curious we will be. All right, so let me try to explain this to you in 2 ways. One of this is going to be using something called Gestalt, so it's going to be visual, and then the next one is going to be in terms of epistemic, right? It's going to be in terms of content. So what does that mean in terms? What is the visual explanation? So think about this slide, and think about the red as the information you know. And then the white represents what you don't know. Okay? So this is what you know, and this is what you don't know. Right? So if you look at this picture from a visual perspective, where do your eyes go? Do they go to white or do they go to red? Red. Can you avoid the white? You can't. It's background. But you will go to the red. Right? So what are you focusing right now? You're focusing on the very little you know, right? And you have a lot of noise about it. So if you are in this state, you're not very curious at all, because you're focusing on the very little you know. There's a lot of background. You're going to get tired. You're going to get frustrated. This is not interesting at all, right? This is if I had told you, if I basically asked you, tell me the mechanics of physics as an open-ended question. That was too much for you. This is the same if I ask you, tell me the price elasticity of demand, what it is. You have no idea. You've never seen that before in your life. So you will not be curious because the gap is too big. But think about your vision. What happens to your vision if I start refilling this with red? At some point, your focus shifts from red to white. Now, you're focusing on that little that you know, and now you're curious. There's no background noise, right? This is now, so at some point here, you became curious. This is the birth of curiosity, right? At some point, right? And then you're focusing. So my goal is to get you in that state, right? Now, what does that mean in terms of content? Well, think about curiosity as a spectrum, right? You can be, you have no clue about the answer to the question, or you're completely sure about the answer to the question. What I'm telling you is that there's an area here, and the details are not important. There's an area here that if I get you in that area, you'll be curious. Right? I don't want you to be 100% confident, but I also don't want you to have no clue. I want you to be a little more than 50%, and I want you in that space, right? So let's consider a couple of questions. How about this one? Now you might have an emotional reaction to this question, right? But in terms of curiosity, you probably are there, so you're not curious. If I have done the same clicker activity I did, and I have started with this, none of you, there would have been silence in the room. No one would have. Could you have turned to the person next to you and tried to debate who the president of the U.S. is? No, right? That was it. So there's no curiosity here. Why? Well, you're here, right? You have no gap. There's no gap. So if you do a question in class and you expect that question to be answered by 90% of the students, that no one's going to be interested in that question. Now that's interesting because the way I see clickers, iClickers being used is in the following: you lecture for 10 minutes and then you do a clicker question to see if they're with you. But the goal of that process is for them to be able to answer that question 90% right. So you are setting up the activity to be boring. Right? Because you are actually telling me that you want the 90%, but I'm just telling you that if the students know the answer to the question, that is not going to motivate them at all. Right? What about this question? I have done this with thousands of people. There's only one person, I think, that got it right. And that person told me that it was misspelled, so I actually right. So the name is here, is not misspelled anymore. Now, so if I had given you this question at the beginning of the class, of this seminar, you also would not have been curious. But the reason it's different is because you probably have no clue, and it's too overwhelming for you. Right? Again, let's try to think. So, in other words, you are in this state. Right? So let's think about that again, because one of the traditional things that we do in our classes is, I did it for a long time. We tell students to read the textbook, they come to class, and then I'm going to start my class with an open-ended question. And I tell my students, what is opportunity cost? Right? So that would be the question I start. So what I'm doing is, I am opening a gap that is too large. So I am telling students, in other words, translation of doing that, I'm telling students, you have no idea what opportunity cost is, and I am going to talk to you about that now, right? So that is not going to create any type of curiosity, right? Because the gap is too large, right? I do this with many economists, but if I had asked you the question, what is opportunity cost? All of you would have actually been interested, because many of you either think you know what opportunity cost is, or you would have thought that there's no way you can get it in the exam, right? But what about if I take out the choices and leave those two? See, all of a sudden, it's possible for you to get it right. Right? And what that does is it motivates you a little bit. Right? And I did that simply by managing information. I didn't do anything else. So not all of you, but some of you, I motivated you to answer simply by managing information instead of giving you points or money or whatever. Right? You notice that when we did the question on the two balls, I said that the C was wrong, right? And I told you that without revealing the answer. That was on purpose, right? Because what I'm doing is I knew that 70% of you had C. And if I take that choice away, you need a home, right? And that's going to motivate you. Not only that, but humans happen to be, we just don't like to be wrong, Right? So of anyone in the classroom at that point, the people who chose C were the most motivated. Right? And I did the same thing with the opportunity cost question. Right? So what I'm doing is I'm managing the information that you and I have in order to change your motivation. And the good thing is I'm doing it just by managing information, so I'm moving you a little bit to that area. And I'm actually wrong because you may have your preconceived notions, which could be wrong, that you might actually think there's no way this guy could be the president of Mongolia. I say this guy could be this guy, right? I'm actually moving you to that state, essentially. This is a very, very simple thing to do. I just told you that you have multiple, you're doing click a question with 4 choices. You should, just change them and do multiple choices. You should do true or false questions, or just choices with only 3, right? So the reason why an economist came up with this idea of saying curiosity this way is because he borrowed off from this behavioral economist. One of them won the Nobel Prize, this Kahneman. They actually had this idea that they found out this idea in the laboratory that we humans tend to value losses more than we value gains. Right? So it just happened. I mean, they gave they did experiments in the lab, and they gave people a coffee mug. And they say, how much you are willing to pay for the coffee mug? And people will say, oh, $10. And then they gave people, they did the same experiment, but they changed it. They gave people the coffee mug, and they said, how much would you want for the coffee mug? And the average was $20. So it just, they repeated all time and time again, right? In fact, I did an experiment on this some time ago, and other people have done it. Your students will be more motivated if you give them the points at the beginning of the class and you start taking points out. Right? They will be more motivated to work. This has been proven in the laboratory and in the field. Right? So do we value losses more than we value gains? So I am framing curiosity as a loss. You lost some information, and you just happen not to have it. Right? So this is about you get people curious by framing the information in this way. So if you want to make your students curious, you have to focus their attention to their information gaps. Right? So this is very simple. But let me go over 3 things that follow from this. The first one is that you have to ask questions. The only way you can reveal information gaps is if you ask questions. There's no other way of doing it that I know of. Right? In order for someone to realize that there's a gap, they need to be faced with that gap, right? So if you want the student, now this should be good because this tells you the reason why the Socratic method of teaching has been around for so long. And it's because it's exactly that, it's asking questions. Right? Now the second thing, but be careful here, is that you have to be careful of how you ask these questions. And there's 2 things I can basically tell you today. One of them, that you have to be careful of opening gaps that are too large. If I had asked you that question like this at the beginning of the seminar, none of you would have actually been interested in this because the gap, I opened a gap. I've told you, you don't know the answer, but I'm also telling you there's no way you can find the answer. Right? So I open a gap that's too large. Right? The same thing if you do questions like this, by the way. Opening questions that are open-ended. So instead of doing that, what I'm doing is I am framing, by giving you the multiple choice, I am constraining the information set into something that's manageable. Right? So curiosity increases and the second one is curiosity increases with information, right? In other words, if you want to ask people questions, you have to prime the pump first, right? So I'm gonna go quickly over this, but if you want the students to be curious, you need to get them at least some background information before coming to class. Now the result of that is that you need to figure something out for doing that. And the textbook is the worst thing you can do. So this is, in my classroom, students actually watch videos before coming to class. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to show you the whole thing. But they do go to a website, and they watch some videos, very short. In the question and answer session, I did a lot. We've spent almost 3 or 4 years of research doing this. So we know a lot about multimedia. And we can talk about what the length of the video that works, and where the questions should be. But the point is that you need the students to know some background information before they come to class if you want them to be curious, right? So I am essentially, this is the flipped classroom, right? There's a lot of cognitive reason to do a flipped classroom. There's a lot of learning benefits. I am giving you a motivational reasons to do the flipped classroom. In fact, I'm also giving you a theory behind the reason your students are very interested every time you talk about movies, right? Or TV shows. Right? There's a lot of instructors that recommend that, and that works, but we don't know why. And the reason they work is because it uses the students' previous knowledge in order to make them curious, right? So information actually increases curiosity. So if I open this guide, I ask you, what is opportunity cost? So what's happening now is that if you have taken a class on economics, or if I had told you the definition, now you think that you know the answer. And you're not curious because the question is too easy. Or at least you think it's easy. Right? So you were going on your life thinking what opportunity cost was. Right? And here I come and tell you that actually you don't. And you were there, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open a little gap there. And the little gap, I open it by giving you a question. Right? I'm putting you on the spot. And the beauty about multiple choice in this way is that for you not to be curious, because there is even if you know the answer, or you think you know the answer, there's still a gap in your brain. Because I still haven't told you what I think is the answer. So there is a gap between you and I, because I haven't told you I agree with you. Right? So a multiple choice creates a gap all the time, even for people who are actually there 100%. Basically, if I had my way, I would use multiple choice for exams. We don't use them in the classroom, at least this is kind of the idea, unless you use those quick questions. I think multiple choice, the process is reversed. I think no one should be using multiple choice for examination. We should be using them in the classroom, because this is a fantastic way to motivate people. I mean, this is what I did today with you. I just do 2 multiple choice questions, right? And it's very easy to manage information too, because I have 4 choices. You can always split yourself among these choices, right? So what I do here is I give you 4 choices. I know, I expect you to distribute yourself. If you don't distribute yourself, I can eliminate the choices in which you're going. So I'm opening a little gap, and by holding that gap there, the way I'm doing now, I'm not telling you what the answer is, I can keep you curious, right? I usually don't do it for that. So let me tell you about 2 things. So in my class, we did designed 2 experiments to test these 2 things. The first one is to test the idea of that students do care when there's a gap between what they think about their answering versus a correct answer. And the second thing we did is we try to test this idea whether increasing information increases their curiosity. So the way we did this, for instance, the information one, I took the students in the same class, and then I split them into 2 groups, right? And then we give the 2 groups the same question. This public growth question is an income question. It's a topic that we don't cover in class. It's a multiple choice question with only 1 right answer. And then the difference between the 2 groups that were randomized was that in one group they got like a little quick text thing about the question, and in the other group we gave them a video that they watched before the question. Right? And we clarified the text. I mean, we assumed that they didn't read the text, so we gave that would be the no information, and then the video is the information group, and we expected that the students who read the video to be more curious. Now, this is the video we showed them. Well, I'll show you the next one. But how do we measure curiosity? So we measure it in 2 ways. We ask the students after they answer the question, how curious were you about the answer, from a scale of 1 to 7. And then so that's self-reported curiosity. But we also told them, what if, we gave them 1 point for answering the question, everyone got. And then we said, are you willing to give me half of that point to know the answer? So we also measure it by them paying for the answer. And so we got those 2 measures, and we also asked them how confident they are about the answer on a scale of 1 to 10. So this is what we found out, right? So if the students didn't watch the video, only 14% of them were willing to give me half a point. But the student who watched the video, there it is, and this was a video by the way. It was just a very short video, a minute and a half.
A bicycle and a fireworks display, and 2 potential vectors.
It was a very straightforward video, a minute and a half.
Easily prevent
so they have to watch that video before answering the question.
Requiring that they pick the bikes before using them.
So what percentage of them who watched the video? It was 46%. just 1.5 minutes, all right? And the interesting part is that when we look at the difference in their self-reported curiosity, we didn't see any difference. And what it tells you is that students don't know how to report curiosity. They don't even know what's going on in the brain, right? But that's what we expect. Students are also really bad at knowing what they know, right? So, but that doesn't matter. I mean, you get the benefits no matter what. So that was the first thing. We know that information. So what we're trying to do here is to convince people that they shouldn't get rid of the lecture. What they should do is to get the lecture and put it outside of the classroom and try to get the students to consume some of that lecture before class, right? And there's some motivational benefits that you get out of that. And they're quite striking, all right? They're not trivial. The second thing we try to do is to test what is the effect of this gap between their thought about the right answer and the actual answer. If you think about that gap, students answer multiple choice, the same way you are right now with those 2 questions I gave you. There's 2 gaps in you right now. One is that you want to know what the right answer is, and I will tell you. So do you have a correctness gap? You want to know whether you're right or wrong. That's a correctness gap. But you also, after I tell you whether you're right or wrong, you may also want to know why you're right or wrong. I call that an explanation gap. So no one has tried to do that. So what we're trying to do with this next experiment is to try to tease out those 2. And the first thing we're trying to do is we separate students into 2 groups in the same way. We give them 1 question, and then in 1 group, right after they answer the question, we told them whether they were right or wrong. And then we asked them how curious you are, how confident you are about the answer. That way we asked them before, we tell them they're right or wrong. And then we also asked them, are you willing to give me half a point to know what the actual answer is? And in the other group, we didn't tell them whether they're right or wrong. And the idea is, if that correctness gap is pretty large, we expect the students who were told what the answer is to be a lot less curious than the students who still don't know. Right? So I separate the students into 3 groups based on confidence: high confidence, low confidence, and medium confidence. First, I'm going to tell you how all the students do. So I expect these students to actually be a lot more curious, and that's actually exactly what we found. That correctness gap is pretty powerful. I know many of you are pretty interested in that because you just want to know whether you're right or wrong. Right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, well, we want to see how they do. Which of these 3 groups value that more? Right? In other words, for which of these groups of students would I get the most benefit by holding the answer? What do you think it is? Which one of these 3 groups you think has more desire of knowing the answer? Medium? Right. So I think that when I ask that question, most of us are kind of between medium or high, but it's not obvious, right? It's not, definitely the low students probably don't care, right? Those students want a point and that's it. They have no clues of the problem. So what we found is actually pretty similar. The medium students are the ones who have the highest value. They're followed by the high students. And then the low students actually have very, very little value on that, if at all. They just want to finish, right? This is also, I hope, important information because it tells if you can ask the students questions about confidence before you start the activity, then it gives you a lot more information about how to manage the activity itself, right? If I had a group, in other words, I know that if I had a group of physics people here, I know that they would not be interested in the ball question because they probably know what the answer is. Now, if I had a group of economists, they would still be interested about that question because they can't agree. I already told you that, right? So it will not apply to economics, but it definitely applies to physics people, all right? Okay, so let me tell you a couple more things, and then I'll leave it there and open it for questions. So another thing that I do, that I know is that people, you're going to be a lot more curious when you disagree. And contrast, we know, is interesting. And I use a lot of puppy pictures, by the way. I mean, you should also do that when you present. Babies and puppies are really popular. But contrast is interesting. This is the reason we use it visually, right? Contrast of color and then contrast. And when you disagree, there's contrast, right? So I want to. I knew that I was going to get this spread, right? And this is the spread I want, right? if I do the typical lecture and then are you with me, I'm not even looking for that spread, right? But when you're thinking about which multiple choice questions to use, you don't want to use the multiple choice questions that you wish students get it right. You use those to examine them outside of the class. But if you want discussion in class, these are the questions you want. Because you want, when they turn out to the next person, you want them to disagree. And that's interesting to them, right? In fact, the best way that you can actually achieve that is by getting them to defend their choice, right? And then sometimes what I do, so this is what, when you voted the first time, it was about 70%. What I do, and I know that's the wrong choice, I take that choice out before I reveal you the answer. This is another important thing, is that you have great information from these clicker things, so you can use that information to engage a discussion. So you can do this thing with a show of hands. But the problem with the show of hands is that your students will also know the information, right? So what I'm telling you is that the clicker is not, I see clickers not as a learning device, I see them as a motivational device, right? That's what they're good at, because there are two reasons you're interested. One is you click, and if you click, you have skin on the game, you want to be right. And two is you're transferring information to me, and I'm using that information to shoot out some other information to you to make you more curious. That is a fantastic tool to actually manage information and make you more curious. I think clickers are used as a learning device in the classroom, and I think that's not the right way of using them, right? Particularly because in 50 minutes, you really cannot learn anything, right? So, okay, so this is the reason why the opportunity cost question is so fantastic. Right? This is the reason why economists think it's, I'm pretty sure I've talked to economists, and I have seen people almost to the point of fighting about this question when I do this with a group of economists, right? And that's a good thing. I know that they fight each other, right? But okay, and then finally, curiosity increases. This is actually that people sometimes feel interested about. And this one you can do right away, and I'll tell you. But let me tell you the principle. So, if I see curiosity as some information you're missing, then curiosity is a good that you need to consume, right? You want to consume. And if you think that good is close to you, you will be more motivated to obtain it, right? Why does that matter? Well, how many of you have children? When were you the most curious, in the 9 months of the pregnancy, when were you the most curious about the gender? Huh? If you did not do an ultrasound at the birth, right? If you did an ultrasound, it's at that moment that the doctor doing the ultrasound said, oh, I know the gender already. And you're sitting there, right? At that point, you will probably hit that person to tell you what the gender is, right? Because why? Because you weren't that curious before. Why? Well, because now the information is next to you, right? So when I get you to actually, the reason these questions are going to be more interesting when I do them in the classroom than when you actually try to look at these questions online on your own, is because you know, at least you think, I have watched this video before. And I have seen the balls, and I know which one reads the end first, right? And this paper was written, I read the paper, and I know which is the answer of that opportunity cost question. The fact that you are in the classroom with me makes you more curious because I'm holding that information. And the fact that you're next to people that must have answered the question correctly also makes you more curious. Right? This is very difficult to replicate online because when you're looking at people's eyes and you know that some of these people have the answer and you're listening to the noise of the classroom, I've been teaching online for 12 years. This is very difficult to replicate online. This is the reason why you need to do it in the classroom. See, the classroom is the only time that you have the students and you there together in the whole week. Right? There's no other time to do that. Right? So you cannot, and it's very hard to replicate online. So therefore, that must be where the competitive advantage of the classroom is. And if you use the classroom for anything else, you're giving up that. So you cannot be using the classroom for other things that you can mostly do outside. Right? I mean, the economics don't make sense. So what I'm telling you is that, people, you can try to fight the flipped classroom idea, but the economics are such that it will happen. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. right? It's a cost proposition, right? Anyway, the best way to leverage that, well, I always say to people, I'm going to tell you 5 things, and then I count, right? Because you know that I have those other numbers, right? And your brain likes movement. So, if you want to do a presentation, the best thing you can always do is to do this. I'm going to tell you 5 things and then start telling them, right? But another thing is, if at any point you think your students are not interested, you can tell them, you answered this question already last week. I told you that when I showed you that thing, right? I said, you already have the answer. So it happens to be that the other person that has the answer is your previous self. Who can be closer than your previous self, right? So now you're really curious because you know it. It's inside you. When are you really curious about when you're thinking about you listen to a song and you're, oh, who sings that? I know that. It's on the tip of my tongue. That is the tip of your tongue, right? If you had answered it already. If you can get your students to think that this question is something they already answered, they just have to have access to it, then they will be really curious. Right? It's a very simple thing to do very quickly. Okay, so now if I'm summarizing all this stuff that I tell you, how does this work the process? All right. So if you want to increase curiosity in the classroom, ask them a question. Well, that's the first thing. I think it should be a multiple choice question. It doesn't have, by the way, the multiple choice doesn't have to have a perfect answer. I haven't said that in any moment. Right? It should have a multiple choice, right? And there should be disagreement about what the answer is, but no answer has to be right. Right? Ask them a question. Force them to make a single choice. All of them have to make the same choice, just one choice. Right? They cannot make multiple choice, but only one. They have to take a stand. You want the student to take a position, and there's no better way to force them to make a position than to ask them to make a choice in the multiple choice. Then, at the same time, everyone at the same time, right, is going to vote on the answer. Again, this is the reason why sometimes group work don't work, because we have one group over there working on one question, and we have this other group over here working on a different question, and then the usual side is that you wanted to report. Well, when these people are reporting, those people don't care, because they didn't ask you to have the same question, right? So there's no disagreement between them. That's not very low motivated. So this is one reason why everyone working on the same question is a lot better than everyone working on different questions. And then ask them to defend that choice, and this could be by group, or it could be as simple as turning to the person next to you and defend that choice. In fact, it will be much better if you have to force them to agree. What if you have a tool, a technology, in which you and I were in a group, and there's no way your answer, I can detach myself from your answer, and you cannot detach yourself from my answer. Answers go to the grade book as one. I'm forcing you to agree. Now, we can start fighting with each other, maybe, right? But we are going to talk, and I want to care about what you think, because we both have the stake in the game. So this is what the technology doesn't exist yet, at least not in the same place. But I think this is what we should be doing, right? And then finally, your job as an instructor is to manage the information and use that information to kind of move them to that curiosity area. And when I do this opportunity cost question in my classroom, people ask me, well, how is your classroom, right? So my class of 50 minutes takes about 4 or 5 of these, actually right now it's between 3 or 4 of these questions. And I use as many as or as few as I think I should use in a particular case. There are times in which this opportunity cost question takes me the whole class. Because after that, now I can probably start. Now what I do is, tell me what you think the answer is, and defend it. Now, actually, what I ask the students to do right now in the current iteration of my class, they have to they have to make the choice, and then they have to write an explanation right after. And I have access to all that information in my computer in the front. So sometimes what I do is I look for answers that seem right but are wrong, or they have some problem or some kind of misconception, and I copy and paste them into the projector. And then I tell the students, is this right? Is this wrong? So when the question is rich enough, and you have a fantastic question, then you can spend the whole class on that question. Well, there's no reason to actually do a lot of them. But I think in 50 minutes, my opinion is that you can do them as most 3 or 4. the goal, the challenge is really to find the good questions. So this is also what I think, one of the things I like to work on, I'm trying to build this, at least in economics, is to create a database of these questions. Because if I found a question that works in my classroom and I have a lot of students, why should I just share these questions with some other people teaching econ, right? Because the challenge here is the question, right? So I think the point I'm trying to make today is that I think it is a good thing that the machine is doing this today very, very well. So our goal should be motivation. Now, we cannot actually get better at it by using all style of motivating people. External rewards like grades or things of that sort. So I think we need to know about motivation. We need to study motivation as instructors, and we need to get really good at it. And we need to have space in order to do that. And if we do that well, I think it could be very powerful, and we will be rewarded in the market. This is the same thing I get from Mara. There's two things. One is there's very little incentive, I think, to actually offer answers. Our job traditionally has been about offering answers. What I'm telling you now is that our job has moved, and now it's more about creating questions and leaving them open. Right? That's the way to teach it. Now, a lot of people tell me, "Oh, it sounds like really made up, right?" So, or students are going to get upset that how do you manage all that stuff, right? So, there's two examples of industries close to us that actually are really good at doing what we have to do now, right? Which is with motivation. One of them is the game industry, right? And that for a game to be good, it has to motivate gamers in the same way we kind of want to do it with our students. We want to get them into a point in which it's challenging, but not so challenging, right? So how do they do it, the game industry? Well, they do it by spending a lot of money on creating the game, right? To benefit from economies of scale, right? So and then you can use psychologists that know about motivation and stuff. So it's really, really hard. So that means that you have more incentive to actually now work with other instructors or with instructional designers, right? Because now you can use all of those resources, spend them one time on the class and then provide it. The other good example, I think, that we could look at is movies, because a movie director also does the same thing that we try to do, right? They open gaps, right, in the same way that I'm telling. They use what they know about motivation to motivate people, right? And so I think we should also be looking at them, right? So what I'm going to show you here, to prove my point, is a clip from one of my favorite movies called Before Sunrise. And it was about 25 years old. It's called by the director Richard Linklater. And he did two other movies follow-up, Before Sunset and Before Midnight, I think is the last one. The two actors wrote the script. So if you've never seen the movie, they met for the first time at the beginning of the day. And they've been talking for the whole movie, walking around Vienna. And then in this part, they're looking to, they enter a video record store, but they have been talking about 6 minutes. They like each other, right? So the director has been building all of that. This moment is when you come into the movie, all right?
Have you heard of this singer? I think she's American. A friend of mine told me about her.
Do you want to see if that listening to still works?
Yeah, okay.
are they going to kiss? So teaching is not a science, it's an art, right? And if well done, you don't want to know the answer to that question. Right? Thank you. That I was happy to take questions during the presentation, but if you have it now, I'll take it now. So we have plenty of time for that. Yes.
One thing I'm interested in your thoughts on is how you can use questions to reveal when students' intuition is correct or incorrect, and how you use that.
Right. So actually, a lot of these questions. So another thing I do, which I didn't tell you about. So the students, when they do this, when they're watching videos before class, they also have to attempt the same questions I do in class before they come to class. Doing the same thing, making a choice on the multiple choice, and then tell me why they answer. So the benefits of that is I have time before class to look at all that data, particularly and then if I can sort that data by the choice, right? So I know that students who answer A are probably making this type of misconception. And if they have to explain to me why they answered, I get even deeper into why they're making that misconception, right? So I think the best way to actually find out what type of misconception they're making is by doing that, by asking them to make a choice and then defend it. And then for you, going over that data and see if you look patterns, if you see patterns. And then, after you do that, you can go back to the question and try to, fix it, or it will tell you something about how to use a question in the classroom. But I think the best way to look deeper into the misconception, which I think is what you were saying, is to ask them to defend it and to write it, and for you to have access to that. Does that answer the question? So.
Well, I think so. I teach ecology, which is an area that a lot of people think they know, but don't always know. And
right.
So sometimes sometimes they do know it, and I'll use a quicker question just to be like, oh, you knew this, even though we haven't covered this concept yet. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's also like, you think you know competition, and oh, look,
right.
Only 10% of you.
Right, so the question is, do you think they realize they don't know it? At which point they realize they don't know it? When they actually have to answer the multiple choice, or when you told them that they were wrong?
When I told them they're wrong.
Okay, so why do you think that is? Is it because the misconception is so strong? I mean, or there's an answer, there's a distractor in there that is so easy to choose? Or?
I think it's because I think they're sort of like, sometimes the pop culture version of it is wrong, and so they feel like, oh yeah, I know this. We don't know what competition is, but it has a different or more specific.
And then what do you do at that point? If you know they're going to choose this distractor, what do? Do you tell them that they're wrong right away, or do you?
I do.
Okay. And
so this is something that I've changed over time, because I feel like it helps them and be like, oh, maybe I should pay attention. Right. Instead of like, oh yeah, competition, I got it.
Right. And there's something, you're right. I mean, there's something to that, right? So you create a gap, right? And what I'm telling you is like, well, let me ask you this. Do you think that most students, after you tell them the right answer, they know why is this right? Okay. So then the question is whether the answer is so surprising that they still care because they want to know why. And I think in that sense, I can totally see the idea of holding the answer to a certain extent and then giving them the answer because they need to know that they're wrong, particularly if the misconception is so ingrained. But then don't assume that you lost them at that point because they still don't know why. And then how do you think we can use that idea? I mean, would you go there and explain them why, or would you, because you have a choice, right? At this point, they're still curious about their why, so how do you manage that, you think?
I guess I've tried to use it as a, like, this is something, like, to draw their attention and get them to engage with the material.
Right.
And then, but then I think I just go into sort of my normal.
You tell them why, okay? You tell them why on the board. So, by the way, I'm brainstorming about this with you in a way. So, but I think if I were in that situation, one thing I could consider is there should be some people in the classroom that know what the why is. So another way of doing it will be by asking them to get to the right answer on their own, without you telling them. So then they'll have to identify those people who know the right answer and do it from the beginning. But that, in a way, leverages the fact that they're still curious about the why before you actually tell them the why. Right? And there might be, ways of doing that, right? So you can tell them this is the right answer, right? And then after that point, you tell them, and here's an explanation for that from this student, and you can show them that text. And then you can say, is this the right explanation? That's another multiple, a new one. So you see, what you're doing is you're leveraging the fact that there's still a gap there. So I guess the one I like about this is like, as long as you have a gap, you can kind of utilize that for your advantage in terms of motivation. Right? I always think that you can tell them the explanation in a video after class. So what you have to think about, and I don't know what the answer is, but what you have to think about it is whether there's a benefit for them, for you to tell them the answer, the why, at that moment. And every time I ask that question myself, I come up on the side of the video after class. But it might not be the case, right? But the important thing is to know that we do have that answer. That's a good question. Yeah.
Hi, I'm from our FCI group now, but I recently came over from USA, and I was the eye clicker down there for 3 years. So there's a lot of stuff that you've talked about.
Yes, of course.
That thinking about faculty development, I talked about like the idea of like it not just being a tool for learning. I'd say it's a tool to start activities. So like it's if you're asking a question that people can answer really quickly, like you're probably wasting time because you're not gaining anything from it. And I also really like the idea that you're recognizing the competition that you have from other sources of information, right? There's a ton of stuff out there, and we see this huge decline of people coming to lecture because of that. And the cheating.
Exactly. The cheating is usually a function of, well, we can talk about that for hours, but if you're giving students incentive for being right, you get certain time of cheating. That if you get students incentive for just clicking, right? So, yeah, the incentive is important.
Yeah. So I have two questions. One, they're kind of related. We'll see how they answer. But I'm curious. You've been talking and using the term motivation and the term curiosity. Almost interchangeably, but I'm not sure. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that.
Thank you for that question. That's very good, because at the beginning I said, okay, so at the beginning one thing I said, and I sometimes forget to point that out, so I'm glad you brought it up. So there's two different types of motivation. External motivation, I give you some points, I give you some money and you do it. Or internal motivation, you do it because of something inside you is making you do it, right? Apart from the external reward. So I like curiosity, I like internal motivators. We have been proven in the lab to be a lot more efficient at getting people to do stuff. And external motivators, it's not that they don't have an effect, it's that they have a pervasive effect. Meaning that if you use grades, performance rewards for grades, anything else you'll be doing well in terms of motivational aspect are probably being affected negatively by the fact that they have to get it right. Now, curiosity is just one of them. There are other things that we know help people motivate from within. One of them is mastery. We like to complete tasks. Like when you run a marathon, you feel good about finishing it. Right? And you run, even if I don't pay you to run the marathon, you actually pay to run the marathon. Right? So, which is, I thought about it, that's crazy. Why would I pay? Why would I get up at, you pay, you get up at 6 a.m. in the morning to run. I mean, that's crazy, right? But we do get excited, and this is also the reason that I've been walking the whole 5 miles, and when I see the ending, I just start running, right? So, mastery, people like to finish stuff. We like autonomy. Autonomy is another. We are more motivated about tasks when we own the task. So if you can make students own the grade or what they do, they're going to be more motivated, right? If you build your activities in a mastery way, meaning that you have to complete it as many times as you want to, but you have to reach the bar, right? It's going to motivate them a lot more than if you give them a score based on what they do. Students are also, self-efficacy is also important, meaning that we need to see relevance in what we do. Like if you talk about a topic that students are closely identified with, they will be more motivated with it. So, curiosity is just one of them. It just happens to be one I focus on, but all the other ones are equally important. And I think we should be focusing on all of them at the same time.
So can you wrap this back around to video and getting students to look at video? Because in my experience, students don't actually want to look at video.
Okay. So the whole thing about video is, so there's two parts of the video, right? The video, some of it has to do with our brain attention span. And this is part of the reason I like curiosity, by the way, because it combines attention with motivation, right? But part of the reason the students want, if you give a student a 20-minute video, he's not going to watch it. And it's not that he's going to watch 5 minutes and then quit. He's not going to start. So we have now enough research to know what our attention spans are. And in terms of video, for most things, basic things, it runs between the attrition ratio is between 5 and 7 minutes. Meaning that if you have a 7-minute video, you're already pushing really against that threshold of attention, right? So 7 minutes is really long, right, already. So, but if you have a 2.5 or 3-minute video broken by a question, and then another video of 2.5 and broken by a question, because of our attention spans, students are actually more likely to complete it. So a lot of the motivation to watch the video from a student perspective is simply by the length of the video. Now, there are other motivators you can use, right? So the other thing is, okay, so if I have a choice. If a student watch the whole video, the whole set of video, they get a point. And if they only see 90% of the video, they get 0. Right? There's no 90% if you watch 9 of them, right? Or if I give them a question embedded in the video, they don't need to they can have it wrong as many times as they want to, but they don't get penalized for that. Right? So there is a motivational aspect there, right? Because if I actually give them points for just getting it right, and give them points for 90%, what's going to happen is that they will do it probably, and then they will complete it, but they will start cheating more. Right? So some of the technique here is that the best way to motivate them to do the video is just to give them a completion rate. Now, the truth is that some of them will not watch it, right? No matter what you do. But at that point, you have to ask yourself, how much attrition you can sustain. So in my case of my videos, I have looked behind the scenes, and I feel pretty confident that, at least at the beginning of the semester, about 65 to 75% of them are watching the whole video, they're not fast forwarding. I do know that 25% of them are fast forwarding, right? And not really watching them. Now, does that mean I shouldn't use videos? Well, I don't know, because only 3% of them were reading the textbook, right? So I'm getting a huge benefit, right? So I'm getting a huge benefit. Now the question is, am I willing to sacrifice the 75% who are watching it because I'm not happy with the 25% who are actually taking advantage of it, right? I don't know if that answer is yes, right? I actually think if the 75% of watching the video are watching it, and one of the costs of that is that 25% of the students will get the. And the point is that even if you look behind those 25% students, some of them are not watching it because they don't need it, right? They already took an econ in high school. To be honest, I don't even want them to actually watch the video. They don't have to. So the question is, how do we get them? How do we get that 25%? Well, we can try to use the grade. Here's another idea. You look behind the scenes at who fast forward, and that's really easy to do. And you get a TA whose only job is to send them an email every week, and you can do this like in 2 minutes by choosing, clicking, select all of them gets an email, and it simply says, we know you fast forward. We are looking at this. We might actually give you a 0 next time. We may never do it, right? But the point is that he's not penalized, right? He knows someone is looking behind the scenes. That we have found out that has a dramatic effect in that whether a student will next time do it or not, right? So nudging actually works really, really well. all you need to do is to actually change the way you organize the class so that you may have to spend any more human hours in nudging. But the benefit of nudging is that it doesn't penalize the 75% who are completing it just with that incentive. Right? The nudging is, is really beneficial to those. So yeah, I mean, I think there are many things that we know about the videos, but and you can use a lot of those things to actually. The other thing you can do, you can ask the students a question at the beginning of the video that they have to answer, and then you don't give them the answer until the end of the video. This is using the same thing we talked about, right? So yes, I think you're right. I think the same motivational things that we know about people, we can use them to watch some of those videos. Right? Yeah.
I had a comment and then a question. And so I have a colleague at Ithaca College who's been studying how often students pause in a 5-minute video.
Right.
And their initial results show, and that they're just in a room, this is the only thing, they can't browse anything else on the computer. And the initial results show that they stop anywhere between 5 times to 50 times. Yeah, in 5 minutes, yes. And then they can't even browse anything else on the internet or anything. So, yeah. So it's something to think about, and definitely when you hit 7 minutes, you're really.
Oh, you hit 7. I mean, a video is 7 minutes. I mean, it's just not going to work.
And so my question about the videos is, if we think about the videos in particular as something that can provide students with the correct answer or an explanation for how to get to the correct answer, what are the ethics with that with respect to how the low confidence students were less likely to want to see the video? Like I would imagine for myself, or an instructor, for example, they may want the students who have low confidence in their response to actually be the ones watching the videos instead. And
right.
So what are the ethics of having it that way, and are there any differences in the way in which different groups of students, like
right.
students who have the lowest grades or the highest grades,
right.
are responding to that?
Right. So that's a very good point. To be honest, I haven't thought a lot about that, but I have thought about it in the sense of, again, comparing, right? So if we, when we present a lecture live, I would suggest that it's the most unequal way of presenting the information, mainly because I present it to just one student. I don't know which student is that, but the fact that I'm doing it once means that some people may think it's too fast, and some people are going to think it's too slow. And it's really, really hard to determine who those people are because I have no data on whether they're paying attention to me or not. So what we tend to do, because we know that when we talk, is that we pause, and then we repeat ourselves. We use different intonations. We stop for questions, or usually students don't ask questions, right? So I think that's a very unequal way. So the question is that the video already in the fact that the student has control over the fast forward and backward button, even power. Not only that, but we can actually, he's giving us data every time they do that we can look at, and we can correlate that data with other things we know about them. So we should be able to know the students in this category, whichever way you divide it. It could be by GPA, or it could be by ethnicity, or it could be by gender. You know how they're doing differently in terms of pausing, fast forward pausing. And then you can provide that video. The technology is there that you can provide the video in a way to those different groups so that you can actually account for those differences, right? So I think in that sense, I think the ethics on videos, I think are a lot more, I think, equal than if you actually do the lecture. Now, do we have answers to those questions? I don't think so. I was really familiar with the multimedia research up to like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but I never saw a lot of that. So I don't know whether there is out there already people looking at the video watching characteristics of different people. But if you wanted to look at it, I have a MOOC with 10 years of data, right? So I'll be more than happy, because the thing is that those people, we have an omnibus IRB, so you wouldn't even have to have IRB. So you're more than happy, and I'm happy, so other people are coming to me. Yes. What is it?
I'm claiming her time.
Yeah. But it's really hard. I'm giving them 10 years of data. Right? So I'll be more than happy to actually, for you to look at that. I'll give you everything, all the data, and I would like to know what the answer to that question is.
Yeah.
And it will be better.
We'll have to have that.
Yes. Let me go back there and then I come forward. Yes.
So you mentioned a lot about things that the instructor can do in the classroom itself, but sometimes in courses, like students are also given term projects, which are expected to work on it kind of independently or with a partner. So I'm kind of like curious about the motivation for that. Yeah. Like based on my experience as a grad student, like the times I'm most motivated in my research is when I start seeing something that might lead to like something that's never been seen before, and not the initial period of time when I'm like amassed with a sea of data which I have no understanding of.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And answering what works outside the classroom will take another, will take a whole set of presentations and stuff and content. But one thing we do know when you have, let's say, a project like the one you have, that you can get it from some of the stuff we said, is that you need to break that project into milestones, and each milestone has to be, challenged but not so challenged enough, right? So if you give students a term paper project, the best way to do that is you can talk about the final goal, but hide it in the first milestone. Focus on the first milestone, right? And then have a time that they can focus on that, and then once they complete it, you give them the second milestone. So you put them in a situation in which they work on it incrementally, and you focus their attention not in the last project, because that will be too overwhelming at the beginning, but focus their attention on the small milestone, like you said, right? So you cannot, if you had only focused on the last one, you will have not been able to appreciate the little advance you made, right? So that is kind of something that follows from this. But in terms of you can use a lot of the stuff from outside of the classroom, but you don't have, the time management issue is more difficult, right? But you can use a lot of the stuff we said in the work they do outside of the classroom. It's just that it's going to be more challenging when they progress at different levels, right? But again, look into there's a lot of people doing a lot of work on gamification, and those are the people who actually are programming the machine to provide this management of information that I was doing it myself. There's people programming the machine to do that, the machine itself, depending on the input they get from the student. So I think there's a lot of research out there and work on that. So that's kind of the way I think I'll see it, right? Outside of the classroom, I think the machine can actually do a very good job at providing feedback, and then you can kind of design the whole thing.
I was just going to say, in response to the conversation with Susan, if you did find, for example, that students with lower GPAs or lower expectations for themselves or lower self-reported confidence were watching videos at a different rate, that's the kind of thing where if you have that data, then providing nudges or personalized outreach or something like that, you bring those two things together, and it's easier to identify those students, and you can provide a resource ahead of the next lecture, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like you do a triage, right, basically. So I've been moving so traditionally my TAs, well, the way that my art class is being organized is my TAs will do office hours, right, and they'll sit in an office, and then students will come when there was an exam, right? But now I don't do exams, I do all this stuff. So for some time, I kind of disregarded my TAs, right? And they were sitting in an office and no one would come ever, right? So now I have created, because technology has allowed me to create a more efficient learning system for the student out of the box. I have humans that have human hours and they don't know what to do, right? So I think the best way to use them, which I've started to use them, is to do triage, basically, right? To actually look at the data, identify students, and then do a real-time intervention. I think if you have TAs, to be honest, a lot of them should be doing that rather than lecturing in front of the classroom for TA sessions, let's say. So I think the benefits of having students completing all this assessment in the machine is that you can actually triage in that way. This is the reason why we shouldn't be testing either on pencil on paper, or we shouldn't be testing on with clickers, right? And again, I'm very controversial when it comes to this, right? Because people say, well, but if you test on the computer, everyone's going to cheat, right? And then, okay, I'm not saying we should disregard that, right? But assume you have a class of 100 students and you do an online exam, and the benefits of the online exam is that they can repeat the exam. Every student get a different question, they get it wrong, they can retry. There's many benefits. And let's say the only cost is that one student will cheat. Now, are you going to not do it because you're going to prevent that student from cheating and you're going to prevent the 99 students from getting benefit of that? Right? I think what we're really talking is about the optimal level of cheating that you're willing to tolerate for the benefits of online teaching. Now, I'm not saying we should disregard it. We should have people working on that. But we should not stay away from online exams or online examinations simply because students cheat on those examinations. I've been studying this, and the truth is that students don't cheat so much. Our idea of cheating, and this is another area of research I have, we overestimate how much cheating goes on. Cheating takes place. But I don't know if this will be a surprise for you. Students are really bad at cheating. really, really bad. So what I'm saying is like a lot of the times they cheat, and they cheat to their disadvantage, right? So I think we should be trying to get the students to do all this stuff in the machine because we can use that data to learn and then program people to do different things. It's a very powerful thing to give students. Other questions? Yes.
I've got a couple of disjoint ones. I'll agree that students don't read the textbook for the most part, but I've had probably similar percentage that are just amazing textbook readers and come in with the textbook highlighted, saying, okay, well, what's going on here? Fantastic. Have you tried like a parallel pathway of saying you can watch the video or do the textbook or?
Yeah, that's an excellent point because I think it's right. And the point, it's important that we should highlight it to be what meant. The average student will do better with video than text. But I think it's true that some students, for instance, me, I don't like to, when you look at me, if I go to CNN page and they're giving you videos like if you don't want them, I want to read. I don't want to watch a video, right? So I do know that some people, because I'm one of those people, who like to read instead of watching the video. So we do provide the transcript of the videos, right? But we've been, one of the things I'm actually working right now is to try to determine, now that I have these videos, is there any way that I can write the text in a different way for those students who are not going to watch the video and they're just going to read the text, right? So I'm thinking about it, but I do think I agree with you that you should offer the students the alternative of reading or watching the video, but I don't think it should be just a transcript. It should be something else, and I don't really know what it is, right? It could very well be that the students who like to read, you should give them a textbook without the boxes here and without all the things in the margin, right? Because I'm pretty sure that the publishers wrote that textbook for the people that don't like to read, right? For the students, right? But now that the students that don't like to read are going to watch videos, then write a textbook for the students who like to read, right? And it will be it's like the textbook we actually read in grad school, right? Which are like really dry, right? Just words, right? So I think if I were to write a textbook for my class, that would be the type of textbook I read, and then I write, and then I'll give the students the option. You can have this really boring textbook, right? For most people, but it's actually really effective because it can provide the same content in like 5 or 6 pages, and it might have some. So yes, I think the point is that you do have to give them the alternative, but the text itself has to be something different than what you really have.
A couple of my colleagues have used software where the students go in and annotate the textbook online. I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, I've seen it. I think it's good. I think the question is always what is happening. There is definitely some students who are going to benefit from the video. They're going to finish the video faster, right, than they are, even if they annotate by that. But I think if you do think that the student should read this, and this may be different from different fields, right? What works in econ might not work in other fields. So there could be one field in which the information is better transferred in text. So I think that software will probably work very well for that because it kind of teaches a student how to read. Right? So I think all those things have a place. Yeah, it's an important point that it should not be missed that the average student, in most cases, actually benefit from the video, but that's not the same for everyone. So I think those things, technology still have definitely a place. I think it was Eric Mazur, the guy who came up with that. I think it's the annotated terms of, yeah.
Resolve.
Yeah, it's carousel.
Carousel,
Yeah, carousel, yeah. Let me have you, and then that might be the last question, right?
Okay. So I was just curious whether you had any insight on how instructor identity might play a role in like the strategies you.
What do you mean instructor identity?
Like outward appearing identity, like for instance, Asian woman, white male. Okay.
Right. So again, it's a really good question. I don't have a lot of information because there's a slight research on that we're starting to do now, but I don't have a lot of access to, or I haven't really looked so much into it. But it's a really, really good question. The benefit of that, again, is that if you have an online class, there's no reason that will prevent you from splitting the class into an A-B randomization and having two people with small difference, women, men, same ethnicity, so on, and then have the videos be different on that, and then look at the results. Right? And you have all the data in the back. Again, if you want to use my MOOC. These are the things I do with my MOOC. They don't pay me. The university doesn't pay me for it. I only use it for research, right? So, so this is the benefit of the online delivery, is that you can do this A/B test in a very. So we couldn't do that before because you would have to. How do you do it if you're teaching a live lecture? You will have to test a student at the end of the. You cannot randomize, but now you can, and I think you could be. And I know that people have looked at things such as, I think gender is one of them. I think there is some research on that A/B test on gender. There's also A/B tests on whether it benefits from having your face in the video or just your hands, right? And it turns out that having your hands is a lot better than having your face. If you're going to do a video, make sure you don't show your face, right? Even if you're an attractive person like me, right? So I didn't show my face, right? So yeah, so I think that's a really good area of research that my idea is that none of them has been completed by now, but there's people working on that, and we should be working on it for sure.
Jose, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you going to give us the answer?
Yeah, we The answer to the multiple choice.
Tell us why.
Okay, read the paper and see why. It's not me who said the answer is 10. Here's the answer to the multiple. Doesn't matter how many dips you put, it's always finished first.